For many couples, their house is one of the biggest assets in their divorce. So who gets to keep it? Hi, I'm Max Ruthenberg-Marshall, attorney and founder of Porchlight. Today, I'll be addressing the question of who gets to keep the marital home in a divorce. First, to understand our options for the marital home, we want to understand generally how property is divided in a divorce in Georgia. Georgia uses a system called equitable distribution. That just means what's fair, but not necessarily what's equal. However, in practice, usually the division of assets is pretty close to 50-50. That doesn't mean that every asset is split down the middle, but that the whole marital pie is divided in a way that each spouse gets a similar percentage of the assets. So you may have a situation where one person is getting the home and all the equity in it, and the other person gets a lot more of the retirement accounts to balance out not getting any equity in the home. Some clients are surprised to learn that their home is a marital asset and is going to be divided in the divorce. One objection that I commonly hear is that the home is only titled in that person's name. Well, just because the home is titled in one person's name does not mean that it only belongs to that person. Every asset that's acquired during the marriage, which with the very limited exception of gifts or inheritance, is a marital asset. So if your home was acquired during the marriage, regardless of how it is titled, it's a marital asset and it's subject to division in the divorce. The other objection I hear is that the home was purchased before the marriage. If you're in that situation, your home is likely part separate property that isn't subject to division in the divorce and part marital property that is subject to division in the divorce. So if the home was initially purchased prior to the marriage, then some amount of equity was acquired in the home prior to the couple getting married. That equity is going to be separate property. However, most people continue to pay their mortgage after they get married, and they generally pay that from their income that they earned during the marriage. So if that's what you did, which is what most people did, or you paid the mortgage with any other marital asset, then that portion of the equity that was built during the marriage is going to be marital equity and subject to division in the divorce. So now that we understand when a house is marital and divided in a divorce and how it's divided, typically pretty close to 50-50 as a part of the marital pie, you have to ask yourself the question, do you want to keep the house? A lot of people have kind of a gut reaction as to whether or not they're going to stay in the home or leave the home. But if you don't have a gut reaction, talk to your spouse and see if they do. This might be a good area where you can reach some compromise with your spouse if you don't feel strongly. However, if you do feel strongly, you want to ask yourself, what are the reasons for staying in the home? Do you really actually like the neighborhood and have a good commute? Or are you just kind of clinging to it and being sentimental because you're facing a lot of change in life right now? Do you actually maybe want a fresh start? A lot of people say that they're keeping the home for the kids, which is fine if that's something that you want to do, but you really need to examine whether or not that's financially feasible. So some people are so committed to this idea that they just don't face the realities of their budget. If your home is too expensive for you to afford on your own once you're divorced, and you and the kids are never going to be able to do anything outside of the home and you're going to be eating ramen every night, that's probably not going to be the best quality of life for you or your kids, as opposed to living in somewhere that is more generally affordable for you. So if you want to keep it for the kids, just make sure that it is financially feasible. So what if both people want to keep the home? Well, if that's the case, the judge can either order that one of you gets to keep the home, or the judge can order that the home be sold, even though that's not what either of you want. It's really best to try and reach an agreement with your spouse about what's going to happen to the marital home. That way you have more control over the outcome. You can reach the agreement with the help of attorney through negotiations or mediation. And I recommend that you research what your other housing options are. Sometimes people are just stuck on the idea of the home because they haven't truly explored what else is out there. So see what else is available. If it's important to keep the kids in the same school district, see what housing is available in your district, and know what your options are for both renting and buying. It may make more sense to rent for a temporary period of time, initially after the divorce, before going and buying another property. So let's say you and your spouse have reached an agreement. How do you actually go about dividing the marital home? There are really three options for this. So the first one is that the spouse who's keeping the home refinances the home and buys the other party out. Of course, if there are enough assets to go around, that spouse could buy the other party out without a refinance, but in most cases, a refinance is going to be necessary. If you're the spouse who wants to keep the home in this situation, you really want to get pre-qualified with a mortgage broker so that you know that you actually will be able to afford to refinance the home. You don't want to agree and sign the settlement paperwork that you're going to refinance and then find out later that you won't qualify. The second option is to sell the house and split the equity. This is generally the best solution if neither spouse wants to keep the house or if neither spouse can afford to keep the house. It can also be a good way to get both parties access to a lump sum of cash to help them restart their lives as single people without having to dip into retirement accounts. The final option is to co-own the home. This is generally not a great plan. Some couples do it for a short time, say about 6 months before they refinance or sell the home, and there could be practical or financial reasons to do that. But most of the time you don't want to be co-owning the home longer than that. You can, it's totally possible. If you decide to do it for a longer period of time, say the goal of 3, 5, I've even heard 10 years, I don't recommend it, but I've heard it. Then you want to make sure that there is an out for both spouses so that there is a provision that you guys can terminate owning that home together. Owning a piece of property together after the divorce is a way to stay really financially tied to your spouse, and it's not going to be the right fit for most people. Even if you get along extremely well with each other, I really don't recommend co-owning the home after the divorce for more than a short period of time. How you divide the home in a divorce is a big decision, and it can impact the rest of your settlement agreement. If you need help figuring out what the best solution for your marital home is, give Porchlight a call. We're here to help.